They came from cities with names like Marmara, Tekirdağ, Istanbul, and Rhodes. At the turn of the 20th century, Sephardic Jews came to America by the thousands. Arriving in Seattle, many found work in the newly finished Pike Place Market, becoming produce peddlers, fishmongers, and restaurateurs. The market was their world. Their livelihood and their introduction to America came from their daily life behind the stalls. The market taught them lessons in commerce as well as lessons in life. From generation to generation, they passed down their trade, their culture, and their religious heritage. And over time, Seattle's Sephardic community strengthened and grew, becoming the third largest in America.
There were quite a few Sephardic families that had businesses in the Pike Place Market.
And they all knew each other, knew where they worked, and knew what they sold.
Leo Rose had the fish market. There was Albert Ovadia, that had the fish market.
Remember Albert Bensall, Sam Brokus.
Mike Menashe, Michael Menashe.
My uncle Yomtov Mizrahi had the stand across the aisle from us.
A.B. Israel also worked here for a short time.
The Muscatels, the Levies from the fruit stand.
The Al-Hada family, the Hassan family.
Cookie Cohen, his father.
The Russos.
Morheims had the fish market.
The Cauldrons.
I can remember Jack Sadis.
Mr. Hara down at the far end of the market.
There was Sephardics working as employees, and there was Monte Eskenazi.
Victor Menashe worked for Florida Fruit.
Gordon DeLeon, Albert DeLeon worked there, and my father regarded them as almost members of his family.
In a sense, it was almost like leaving the synagogue and coming to a secular synagogue where people were comfortable with each other because these were their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, their friends.
The word Sephardim is derived from the Hebrew word meaning Spain and largely defines those Jews of Spanish descent. Despite centuries of random persecutions and social restrictions, the Jews of early Spain thrived, becoming merchants, philosophers, poets, bankers, and scholars. But in 1492, by order of edict from Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand, Jews were forced to choose between conversion or expulsion. Cast from their homeland, the Sephardim spread throughout the Mediterranean to North Africa, Italy, Greece, Turkey, and beyond. For over 400 years, they adapted to life under the rule of various conquering nations. All the while, the Sephardim held on to the old aristocratic Spanish, infusing it with words from their new homelands, creating their own unique language, Ladino. At the dawn of the 20th century, Sephardic Jews were sent to fight on the Turkish front lines, while on the island of Rhodes, educational and economic opportunities were severely limited. With little more than news spread by word of mouth, they sought out the promise of the New World.
My grandfather, Solomon Calvo, was the first Sephardic Jew to come to Seattle. The year was 1902, and he was accompanied by Jacob Polakar, also from the island of Marmara off the coast of Istanbul. My grandfather landed in Ellis Island. At the time, there was an organization called the Hebrew Immigrant AIDS Society, and they were sending all of the Ashkenazim or European Jews to the Lower East Side in New York, and it was getting kind of full. Somebody suggested that my grandfather come west to Seattle, which apparently was just like the country that he came from. When my grandfather first arrived in Seattle, the only people he could communicate with were Greeks, and they were involved, fortunately for him, mostly in the fish business on the Seattle waterfront. So he later on formed his own company that eventually became the Waterfront Fish and Oyster Company.
My father first heard about Seattle from a Greek who had come from America to Marmara to claim a bride. And he described Seattle as said the gold rush was on and business was very, very good. The year was 1900. He says, I work in a fish market, there's even work for you in this fish market if you want to come there. So then my father followed 2 years later. The Alhadifs who owned the city fish market in the Pike Place Market at the time gave him a job as manager. And he operated the city fish market for the Alhadifs for a couple of years, and then he bought it. He bought it in, I believe the year was 1924. I went to work for my father when I was 12 years old, selling shopping bags, 5 cents a piece, 6 for a quarter. That's what I did, and I also opened up newspapers to wrap the fish in. My father taught me a lot of things about greeting customers and respecting them. He always managed to say, give them what he called good weight. He gave them plenty for their money. He never cheated anybody, and he also made friends with them, and they appreciated it.
My father's name was Jack Ammon. He came from Tekirdağ, Turkey, in the year 1911. Landed Ellis Island around that time. And stayed about 4 to 6 months down there in the Bowery. And then he came to Seattle. My father started in the market in 1911. And from then on, he worked at various fish markets, managed them and ran them and owned them, up to the period of 1956, which we, at that time, we acquired Pure Food Fish Market. I think that in the early days, there was a lot of hard work in the market, and they bought the fish up from the waterfront, they bought their ice up from the waterfront, and it was a very difficult job.
My father, Leon Yuda Ben Ezra, born in Izmir, Turkey, left there as a young man in 1909 and arrived in Ellis Island and spent some time in New York until he was able to take a train trip to Seattle. My father's barbershop was on First Avenue, maybe 50 to 100 feet south of Pike. And he stayed a barber until such time as his arm got injured and he couldn't raise his right arm. So after my dad couldn't work as a barber, he had a small fruit stand in the sanitary market. All the various fruit stands and vegetable stands were all very, within a matter of a couple of blocks. So my dad would take a walk after we got set up in the morning and light up a cigar and then just stroll through the market and see what other people's pricing of the produce was. And sometimes we'd have to readjust our price. So there was definitely market research to see what was going on there.
My father, Marco Franco, left Rhodes towards the latter part of 1909. Sometime in 1912, he and Herman Kronfeld were able to rent a stall in what was then the corner market, which at that time appeared to be one of the finest locations in the whole Pike Place Market because there was a tremendous amount of traffic, foot traffic, and named it Quality Fruit Company. Now, David Mosfer, my uncle, was in the market much longer than my father. People liked him. He had a lot of good customers. He essentially continued there until maybe, 25 years ago.
My father, Pinhas David Elmelech, came to the United States from the Isle of Rhodes, often called Rhodos, in 1920 and went directly to Ellis Island. My father first worked for Palace Fish because his brother-in-law, Nassim Al-Hadif, gave him his start. And he worked there for a number of years, but he cut himself so often that he left ultimately. After a number of years, he and his 2 brothers, Meyer and Jacob, started working together in a little stand in the sanitary market. And shortly after that, the brothers split up, and my father then got his own little stand, and he was very proud to be the proprietor of what we called Pinky's Place.